Let's just say life keeps getting busier, but hey, I'll still somehow find a way to post a video. I thought I'd do this simple and fun challenge instead. Everyone has MS Paint if they're on Windows. Surely you can create something good with it, right?
No! God, please, no! No!
So that's what I'm going to attempt to do. And yes, I'm doing this in the big 2025. The first thing I needed to do was actually create the art I'll attempt to recreate on MS Paint. I could have gone for a piece I created already, but that'd be boring, right? So I'll just make up an entirely new illustration just for the purposes of this video. And because I'm doing that, I can make this as difficult on myself as I can because we all know I hate myself. It's not me if I don't make my life harder somehow. And you're going to see that a lot once we get to the MS Paint section of the video. But for now, I'll explain what I'm doing and kind of my thought process for this piece. I'm trying to get myself to draw some of my other muses because I can't be thinking of muses and do nothing with them. Youngsing and Jihoon probably have enough art of themselves to last them days at this point. Can't say the same for my other muses. In the last episode of Drawing Muses I Don't Normally Draw, I introduced Kea. He's sort of become my fixation just because his personality is fun to write. He's kind of a terrible person, but it makes for a lot of interesting situations. I wanted an excuse to draw him again. Of course, I struggle to draw Kea because I don't know consistency. Clearly. The other muse in the picture is a muse named Sunwoo. He was created a long time ago. I'd say a year after Jihoon and Youngsing. So it would have already been 4 years since his creation. I've done minor things with him, but never a lot, which sucks of course. I gave him a tad bit of potential, but I always stuck to doing things for my main muses because character development. But since Jihoon and Youngsing are at the end of the character development arcs in my head anyways, it opens things up for other muses to take the stage. I'll just have to see. But that's a little bit of history about the muses I'm drawing for this. Now I'll talk a bit more about the piece here. I was referencing the song Naughty by Irene and Solgi, specifically in the pose and outfits. I watched the choreography video for the song and it gave me inspiration. I highly recommend watching it for those that don't know. It's a really cool dance, very difficult though, which is probably why I like it so much. It just shows how talented these idols are. But yes, I used that as my inspiration and pose reference for this piece. This is sort of like a stage and the two are performing that song or something. I don't know, but it was an idea to do. Now, I knew this was going to be difficult, maybe impossible for me to recreate in MS Paint right off the bat. The background is blurred and yeah, I don't know how I'd pull that off. Later, I have my rendering effects and everything, and then on top of my rendering effects, I did this color effect where some parts are desaturated. I don't know how I'll pull that off in MS Paint, but you know, we love challenges here. We're getting to the part in the speed paint where you guys can see me doing all of those final effects. Clearly, I am so reliant on layers and blend modes because seriously, without them, I would not be able to do all of what I just did. Those final effects really add to the piece, which is why I use them of course. I mean, also, it makes trying to recreate this picture harder for me in MS Paint. So yeah, we should be ending this soon, so I'll show the final piece. Here is the finished drawing. I think it turned out pretty cool looking, but I just know it'll be impossible for me to recreate this in MS Paint. So MS Paint looks a lot different than I remembered of course. For starters, there are now layers, but don't get too excited. I'll tell you guys later when we get to flat colors. But the layers do help me with the whole making a sketch and then line art. Obviously, there is no pen pressure for MS Paint and the brushes are limited. Even so, I worked with what I have. Now, this is the moment where I talk about one of the first issues I had. It was the buttons on my drawing tablet. The controls for MS Paint were much different than for Clip Studio Paint. So E is for eraser still, but B actually is for the fill bucket tool, not brush. I would have to manually select the brush. I couldn't zoom in with my scroll wheel on my tablet. I tried changing the settings, but no. To zoom in and out, you have to have the magnifying glass tool selected, so that was annoying. Issues with the controls wasn't the biggest problem here though. It's annoying, but you can easily adapt. Sketching went on as normal, but it took longer than expected just because I was doing the sketch all in one layer rather than making another layer to sketch out the hair for example. There was a lot of correcting within the layer, and also confusion. You can't adjust the layer's opacity, which is annoying. so I ended up coloring my sketch with a lighter color instead. Obviously, sketching mostly went as normal in MS Paint, but then came the dreaded line art. Now, there's no pen pressure sensitivity. My lines would look boring. I like having some weight variation in the lines because it just adds to my art. So I sort of just faked it in MS Paint. I used the calligraphy brushes they had and just tried to do random things. I mean, for an MS Paint drawing, the line art was okay. Of course, this still took way too long because I couldn't use my normal shortcuts. But eventually, I did survive the line art. So here is where the layers screwed me over. Flat colors. Initially, I just tried to color block and scribble stuff. It's because when you make a new layer under your line art and use the fill bucket tool, it doesn't register the other layers. Basically, it's like the only fill within your editing layer setting with some buckets. And if there's nothing in that layer, well, you're cooked. Halfway into the flat colors, I realized I could duplicate the line art layer and fill stuff within that. But of course, I was getting really tired that day. It was a school day when I recorded the entirety of the speed paint on MS Paint, and I was horribly behind on schedule too. So safe to say it became rushed towards the end. I don't think I could have done too much better here though. I really relied on blend modes and everything. Still though, for an MS Paint drawing, it's okay. I was just really frustrated with the layers and stuff. Here is the final MS Paint illustration. Yeah, so I did give up on it a bit, but clearly it's difficult for me to do a lot of my usual coloring techniques here. Now I'm going to put the drawings side by side so you guys can compare. A huge difference in how they look. Now, that's not to say you can't make MS Paint look good. I've seen some insane art that was done on MS Paint. It's all in your skill. A good program makes your life easier, but I think the biggest takeaway is that in art, it comes down to your skill. And those with a lot of skill can work with any tool to create something amazing. Don't worry about getting some fancy program too much. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'd appreciate a like and subscribe if you can. Anyways, maybe I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, bye!